Imagine flying over the vast Sahara Desert. But instead of endless golden sand dunes stretching to the horizon, you see lush green fields, dense forests, sparkling rivers, and vibrant wildlife. The sun still blazes above, but instead of scorching barren land, its rays nourish an oasis that stretches as far as the eye can see. No more endless dry winds or dusty storms, just thriving life in a place once known for its unforgiving emptiness. But what would really happen if the desert turned green? Could this be a paradise? Or would there be unexpected consequences for Earth? To understand this, let's start with why deserts exist in the first place. Deserts cover about 1/3 of our planet's land surface. They form in places where rainfall is scarce, less than 250 millimeters a year. The lack of water, extreme temperatures, and nutrient-poor soils make it difficult for most plants and animals to survive. Yet deserts aren't truly empty. They are home to some of the most resilient life forms on Earth, creatures like camels, fennec foxes, scorpions, and desert plants that store water for months. If deserts suddenly became green, these ecosystems would be completely transformed. The first and most obvious change would be the climate. Green plants are nature's air conditioners. They absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen. They also provide shade and release water vapor into the air, cooling the land and increasing humidity. If the Sahara, for example, were to become a massive green zone, it could lower local temperatures and bring regular rainfall to regions that have been dry for thousands of years. Scientists predict that turning deserts green could even affect global weather patterns. It might shift rainfall toward areas that need it and reduce extreme heat waves. Economically, the transformation would be enormous. Once barren land could now grow food for millions, countries bordering deserts could suddenly have fertile farmland, reducing hunger and boosting their economies. Imagine wheat fields in northern Africa, fruit orchards in the Middle East, and rice paddies in Australia's Outback. Freshwater rivers could run through areas where people once had to walk miles for a bucket of water. Towns and cities could expand without fear of running out of resources. Wildlife would also undergo a massive shift. Species that rely on the desert's unique harsh conditions might struggle to survive in the new, greener world. The camel, adapted to go days without water, might lose its competitive edge. On the other hand, animals that thrive in grasslands and forests like deer, elephants, and a wide variety of birds could move into these newly greened deserts. This would create entirely new ecosystems, blending species from different parts of the world. However, turning the desert green wouldn't be without challenges. Large-scale greening requires huge amounts of water, and that water would have to come from somewhere, perhaps desalination plants along coasts, massive pipelines from rivers, or even tapping into underground aquifers. Such projects would be expensive and could harm other ecosystems if not managed carefully. There's also the question of soil. Desert soils often lack the nutrients plants need to grow, so greening would require adding fertilizers or using hardy pioneer plants to slowly enrich the ground. Another important consideration is how this change would impact global climate systems. Deserts reflect a lot of sunlight back into space because of their light-colored sand. Placing that with dark green vegetation would absorb more heat, potentially warming the region instead of cooling it. This is called the albedo effect, and it could have unpredictable consequences on weather patterns, possibly affecting monsoons, hurricanes, and even polar ice melt. Politically, a green desert could reshape world power. Countries that were once dependent on importing food might become exporters. Access to new fertile land could spark disputes over territory and resources. On the other hand, greening deserts could also be a symbol of cooperation, nations working together to solve one of humanity's biggest challenges: feeding a growing population while fighting climate change. From a human perspective, life would change dramatically for those living in and around the desert. Imagine nomadic tribes settling down in farming villages, children playing under the shade of trees instead of scorching sun, and communities thriving with access to food and clean water. Migration patterns could reverse. People might move into these new green lands rather than away from them. Cities could spring up where there was once nothing but sand dunes. Of course, there would also be cultural shifts. The desert is deeply tied to the identity and traditions of many peoples. A green Sahara might bring prosperity, but it could also erase ancient ways of life that have existed for centuries. This raises a deep question. Should we change nature so drastically, even for the sake of progress? On a planetary scale, if we could turn deserts green across the globe, it could be a powerful tool against climate change. Plants absorb carbon dioxide, one of the main greenhouse gases responsible for global warming. A greener Earth could store billions of tons of carbon in soil and vegetation, slowing the effects of climate change. It could also restore biodiversity in areas where life has been scarce for millennia. But here's the twist. Nature might already be trying to do this in certain places. Studies have shown that parts of the Sahara are slowly becoming greener due to changes in rainfall patterns, possibly influenced by climate change. While it's far from becoming a rainforest, it's a reminder that our planet is dynamic and always evolving. So, what if the desert turned green? It could be a vision of paradise-cooler climates, abundant food, thriving wildlife, and a healthier planet. But it could also come with challenges, disrupted ecosystems, political tensions, and unexpected climate effects. It's a dream worth exploring, but one that requires careful planning, science, and global cooperation. In the end, the idea of a green desert pushes us to think about our role as caretakers of Earth. Should we reshape nature to meet human needs? Or should we focus on preserving it as it is? Maybe the answer lies somewhere in between, using our knowledge and technology to help nature heal where it has been damaged, while respecting the balance that life on Earth depends on. So, as you imagine those endless green fields stretching where there was once only sand, remember every big change comes with both promise and responsibility. The question isn't just whether we can turn the desert green, but whether we should and how we would do it in a way that benefits both people and the planet.